United Athletics Flight 069, taking you from the rolling green-covered hills of Richmond, Kentucky, to the craggier climbs of Cedar City, Utah, and all the football you can handle in between. We're going around the UAC. Please enjoy today's in-flight entertainment, the Rev himself, Dustin Hilton.
All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Friday, happy first week of FCS football. We do have FCS Week 0 games happening tomorrow, and I realize it's late in the week to put out a show, and I apologize, but life does make you sort of busy. So this new show, new conference name, new year. So we're calling this one the Around Athletic Conference Around the U. I will work on a better intro, but I want to give a big break. He did the audio for that, so if you don't listen to the Jay and Keith show on this channel, you definitely should, and thanks a lot for doing this. So this one won't take very long, but I see we got a couple folks who come on, so if you have some questions, we can talk about the conference, but I also wanted to do a little bit of a what's going on this year and a bit of a Week 0 preview, because the conference does have a Week 0 game. So last year, we had Around the A-Sun with Will Seiler, Brandon Owens, myself. Life does come at you and do things. Will is off getting his, he can save the world, which is a great thing. So he's having to take a step back. Brandon's got himself a new gig as well. He's taking a step back. I have a job that requires me to travel a lot. So I'm going to try to, as much as I can, for you guys to talk about the conference. I would like to do them every Tuesday. It may vary upon, all the other things in life that we can't control. So with that, let's talk about what's going on Week 0. There are 3 FCS games this week, 3 pretty good ones, actually. There's Fordham going up to Albany to play the Great Danes. You've got Jackson State and South Carolina State playing each other. Atlanta, which was the FCS Fans Nation game of the week. And then you got the one that impacts our conference. You've got the FCS kickoff game at the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama, and that's going to be Northern Alabama against Mercer. And I really was debating on how much of a podcast I wanted to do this week about this game, because it's not going to be close. And I hate this for Northern Alabama, because sure, they had a rough year in their yeah, exactly, Andrew, football first, sorry. But no, last year Northern Alabama had a very rough year. They fired their coach halfway through the season. I think his name was Chris Willis. They gave him the axe. So, they brought in Brent Dearman, who was the offensive coordinator at Florida Atlantic. So they're in a rebuild, and they've been in the process of transitioning, but it's a rebuilding year. Their best player, Shaderick Powell, left. He's playing at conference opponent Central Arkansas right now, giving UCA one of the best 1-2 punches in the FCS when it comes to running backs. And so it's it's just not looking good for Northern Alabama. I think they're bringing in this, so they've got a couple quarterbacks though, which is kind of makes me interested in how this goes, because they've got TJ Smith, who came with Dearman from Florida Atlantic, and now he's up there. But then they also have Ben Harris, who was a transfer from the University of Oklahoma. So they've got a couple of folks there that could do some damage at quarterback, but I just don't think they have the offensive weapons to keep up in this game. Now, when you look in the FCS top 25, for a reason, they're 7-4 last year in the SoCon, and they bring back all of their weapons, with the exception of Peyton, who is their quarterback. But Peavy, their new quarterback, is pretty good as well. He just sat because Peyton was obviously a better choice. But Peavy does have some experience. He played during the 2021 spring season, if I remember. But Mercer has probably one of the best wide receiver tandems in the FCS. I'm a huge fan of theirs. They got Ty James and they got Devron Harper. Now, Ty James is your big man. If you're looking for a tall guy to throw the ball to you, that's Ty James. Devron Harper is your sort of all-around stud of a player. He had an insane year last year when it came to stats. And I brought this up on the main show, but 10 receiving touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, kick return touchdown, a punt return touchdown. He had something like 1,800 and 1,900 total yards throughout the season. Just insane numbers. Mercer brings back 10 of their 11 top defensive players from last year. I mean, they're stacked. So this one is going to get ugly pretty quickly. I jokingly said Mercer would win by 35. I'm not so sure it's a joke anymore. I will be shocked if Northern Alabama even puts any points on the board. I'm thinking it's going to be something like 42-3, and that may just be, Mercer playing their second string in the second half. Let's talk about the other games real quick. Fordham's an interesting one too, because Fordham, everybody remembers them from last year. They had Tim DeMorat, who was an insane player. They had their Greek wide receiver. I'm not even going to try to say his last name. And there's still some folks who are pretty high on Fordham this year, going back and being with Holy Cross and representing the Patriot League in the playoffs. But I don't think Fordham has the same firepower. Now they're going to go up to Albany, and Albany brings back their quarterback. His last name is now I completely forgot. So I'm embarrassed, like Poffenberger, or I'm not exactly sure how you say it. He had 3,000 yards last year passing, had a good year. Albany's middle of the road to bottom half of their conference. I think Fordham probably takes this one by a touchdown. And then you've got what was the FCS Fans Nation game of the week, which was Jackson State playing South Carolina State in Atlanta, where Georgia State actually plays their football games. Now it's where the Braves used to play before they moved to stadium. And this one is an interesting game because on two things. One, South Carolina State Coach Pugh announced that he's retiring at the end of the season. So this is his last hurrah. But then now you've got Jackson State, who's got a new coach because Deion Sanders left and went to Colorado. And so I think this comes out to be who wants it more. Does Jackson State want to avoid talk of, oh, we won when Prime was here, you guys were better when Prime was here, blah, blah, blah. Or do they want to, come in, make a name and say, hey, it wasn't just because of Coach Prime that we had these players and we had the success over the past 2 seasons. I think South Carolina State is actually probably more primed, no pun intended, for this game. When I look at it, when I look at how it's being set up, they want to come out and make a statement as well. They want to come out and just say that the MEAC is better than the SWAC and it's been Celebration Bowl. And plus, with it being Pew's last year, they want to come out and get a statement win. So I'm picking the State. I'm only taking them by like 3, but I think that'd be a good game to watch. So we got 3 FCS games. Make sure you check those out tomorrow. You don't need to watch UMass at New Mexico State, which should be an FCS game given how bad both those programs are. So make sure you watch these other ones. So real quick before we go, because like I said, this is going to be a real quick episode. I want to talk about my conference predictions. So the nice thing about the United is that it's a real division this year. And I say, or a real real conference. I mean, it's not the Wax Sun Challenge. They're not using this weird point power system to determine the champion. The teams are playing each other. There's none of this sort of weird conglomeration of crap, as Jamie Williams called it, to do this. So it's a new conference, new logo. You got Oliver Luck at the helm. And I honestly think it's the most level with parity conference in the FCS. There was a discussion on Twitter driven by Andrew Markham, who is watching this. So shout out Andrew. He and I had a discussion on if the Southland was better than the United Athletics, and the answer is it depends. Look at it, because if you look at the Southland, and if you use Jamie Williams's rankings, just where he ranked the 0-127, which if you haven't caught that, you can catch on the channel too. Southland does have 2 in the top 25, but then their next best team Jamie had ranked was McNeese, and they were at like 64 in his rankings. While when you look at the United, they had 7 teams in Jamie's top 60. So I think when you look at parity as a whole, the United is a better conference. If you look at the conference may have teams that may make a deeper run into playoffs, it's the Southland with those freaks of nature and Incarnate Word, and then Southeastern Louisiana, who just quietly come in and wreck shop every year. But within the conference, there's the 2 that I think are going to vie for the championship. A lot of folks are big on Eastern Kentucky. They did bring back Parker McKinney. They've got their weapons. Great team, great coach there. But I think Central Arkansas is the one nobody's given a good, or no one has given a good look at because of what happened last year. Coach Brown and the Bears were a much better team than what they showed on the field. They were basically Jekyll and Hyde last year, and they kind of wasted having the wide receiver combos they had there in Willingham and oh gosh, I forgot the other's name. So sorry, Will. But they wasted that. But you know what? They bring back Darius Hale. They've got Will McElvain at QB. They've brought in Shaderick Powell, and they've got the weapons now to run through this conference. They've got the players. I think you'll see Central Arkansas take the conference this year. I think it goes UCA1, EK. And both those teams should make the playoffs. I think they'll both have good enough records. Now it gets down to the third team. Is the conference deep enough? And are there enough other conferences who are not doing it that would allow the United Athletic Conference to get a third team in? And if so, who would it be? In my honest opinion, no, they're not going to get a third team in, but let's just pretend that they're going to. To me, that one's going to come down CNF Austin and Austin P. Austin P does have Mike DeLello, who is a great quarterback. Austin P, though, did lose a lot on the defensive side of the ball. So let's see if it's enough to make. I mean, they weren't a bad team last year. It's just they did lose so much. And then you come to my team, or my alma mater, CNF Austin, and they lost Xavier Gibson. They lost Trey Self. They're big offensive weapons, but they do have Brian Maurer in the QB room. They got Preston Weeks in the QB room. They got Jarrell Wembley. They got Raquel Lawton. They got Takai Lloyd. They're on the defense side of the ball. There's a lot of offensive and defensive weapons there. The biggest gap SFA had last year was they brought in basically an entirely new defensive coaching staff, and that staff could not stop the run. That staff is now gone. They've offered them as far. So Coach Carthel is bringing it, has a new group coming in. So that kind of makes it an interesting thing to see. Will SFA be what they should have been last year? Or will they still be a middle of the pack, sort of 6-5 team? Andrew says ACU is a dark horse, and I think has them in the right direction. I just don't know if this year is the year for them, but I mean, right, they could be in there. I think UCA is more of now they're not as dark of a horse as they were a dark horse when folks are looking at preseason. But I mean, you can't sleep. You also can't sleep on Southern Utah. Lane Fitzgerald is turning that program around. So they're one to keep an eye on also. And then you kind of get down to the bottom where you have Tarleton State and you have Utah Tech and you have Northern Alabama. Utah Tech, man, they've played probably the toughest schedule the past 2 years. And they've, iron sharpens iron. And man, I think they even opened this year. I think they have got Montana State and then Montana like back-to-back weeks. So good on them for scheduling tough this year. And, and I think the Blazers are going to be a program that's on the up and up. So yeah, if you look at the tiers of the conference, I mean, it's ACU, EKU 1-2, and then you got EKU, UCA 1-2. And then you've got Austin P, SFA, Abilene Christian, Southern Utah in that 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you've got Tarleton, Utah Tech, and Northern Alabama rounding it up. So that's my projections for the conference. Let's see. Andrew's got a couple of comments in here. Tarleton's got all that oil money. Well, to be fair, so does SFA. SFA now has that oil money because they joined the UT system and they got more out of the PUF than Tarleton does. But again, money can't necessarily buy you championships. It's a matter of if they can recruit all they want. It's just a matter of getting the product and putting it out on the field. I don't know though how long theoretically Tarleton would stay FCS. Their goal has been to go FBS. They want to go into Conference USA. I just don't think Conference USA wants them as bad as they want to go. But props to them for for adding on to Memorial Stadium. They built that beautiful new facility. For their players. They're doing things the right way in terms of growth. I just don't think they have they're going to get the upward movement they want. But you never know. You never know. This other comment that's on here, which I skipped, with the added at-large bids and HBCU starts being norm in the playoffs, where we see them not be selected due to SOS. That's a interesting question. If you have a year like a couple years ago where you have State and Florida A&M or FAMU both just killing it, then you would see them both get in. It also comes down to if they want to do the playoffs. It's not necessarily a thing on record or anything like that. They don't get in something, may not want to play. I don't know. I would like to see more HBCUs in the playoffs. I'd like to see the Ivy League do a real season and play in the playoffs. Also, to be honest with you, but I mean, I guess time will tell on that. I will say that I honestly don't think Jackson State is winning the SWAC. I think if anybody has a chance, it's FAMU, and if it's not FAMU, it's going to be someone like Alcorn State, who's going to be a surprising team in that conference. So that's really it in terms of the just the show. Like I said, this one would be quick today because it is Friday night. It's been a long week, but FCS kicks off tomorrow. Make sure you watch the games. I'm sure you'll see FCS Fans Nation tweet. You just stumble upon this show and you haven't liked or subscribed to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe to FCS Fans, or I think now it's Fans Nation channel, because we've got the main podcast with Matt, Jay, and Kyler. You've all these great shows on the channel, the Jay and Keith show, one of the bottom 10 teams in FBS being Jacksonville State. Sorry, I saw that article today. They had Jacksonville State ranked as a bottom 10 and FBS, and I honestly can't blame them for that. So anyway, thanks for you guys who popped on. Enjoy the listen. Like I said, quick show. We'll have a recap of week 0 and we'll look at week 1 games next week. Until then, keep safe, have a great weekend, and welcome back to football. See ya.